Good morning, early afternoon. It is just switching from 11:59 to 12 noon. So what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, Fire Medic Adventures Unplugged. Unplugging you from the usual everyday theme park adventure vlogs. Trying to anyway. Thank you all very much for all your support for the prior videos. Everything's doing pretty well. Hope you enjoy the Dinoland USA, the farewell vlog. And today I got something pretty neat for y'all today. It's not a lot of, there's not a lot to see, if you will, okay? But it's more of the history surrounding the area where I'm at, and I'll show you in a minute here. But what I thought we would do today, and what can we start the new year off with in doing something that I don't believe I've seen anybody cover yet, or if they have, it's very difficult to find. I haven't found any YouTubes on it. Again, maybe it doesn't show up in my algorithm when I search, but if there is a few out there, it can't be in very large numbers. So after the Polynesian Tower debacle, that horrendous cut and paste, no imagination tower that we covered, I thought, what can we cover that is a really neat shining light in Disney's history as far as the hotels go? And I started going way back, like far back. Like, what was the first? We all know the first hotels were the Polynesian Resort and later on the Contemporary. But what was before that? Meaning, where was all of this work being done at to train the Disney employees coming to work at the new Walt Disney World Resort? Where was all this originating from? You know, where it had to have been close, right? You think, well, clearly they're not training at the Polynesian or the Contemporary. Those are still under construction. You know, and during that time, the late 60s, early 70s, there wasn't much around here in Orlando. If you've ever seen, I think it's the movie Minions, where they go to VillainCon and they say they're going to Orlando, and they show up and it's just this billboard that says coming soon, and it shows this vibrant landscape with all the buildings and theme parks, but beyond the billboard it's just dirt and trees and palm trees and swamp. And that's basically what things were around here. And so I started thinking, where was all this taking place and how was it being done? Was there another hotel before Walt Disney World, meaning an off-site hotel? And yes, there was. Unfortunately, it's not here anymore, but I am on the site of that hotel. And I think once I get out and show you around, you're going to know this location pretty well for those of you that have been to the Orlando area. So what I'm referring to is the very first off-site Disney World hotel was called the Hilton Inn South. The Hilton Inn South was built by a gentleman named Finley Hamilton. You know, he was originally went to law school, and later on in the real estate boom, as things were picking up, what I've learned about him is he had a great premonition of things. Like, his mind was brilliant, and a lot of people had said that he was a very, very brilliant man in kind of predicting things and learning about trends. So what he did was he bought a bunch of land right where I'm sitting currently now. He bought this land in 1968, around the month of April, for $90,000. And basically they called it a scrub of land because it was just that. It was nothing here. It was just dirt, palm trees, palmettos, and almost like swampland. Everybody thought this guy was crazy. Like, why'd you buy all that land? There's nothing there. But he knew in his mind of minds, and this was in 1965, that's when Walt Disney was thinking about future locations for Disney World. And he had this premonition that, you know, somehow through some insight, that there's a high chance it's going to be in this area near Orlando because of how Walt Disney described it. He wanted it near a couple of major interstates, so it was easily accessible from all roadways, you know, going north, south, east, and west. You know, he wanted it to be designed so people could easily get to and easily get from the resort to go back home. And again, that he wanted it accessible from pretty much everywhere. And sure enough, Orlando, Orange County ended up being the place. But this guy just somehow had this idea that he had a feeling that Disney was going to head down this way, because also he did have some insights too. But before he put the hotel up, this whole area, everybody called it Findley's Folly, because it was just like, they're like, this is in the middle of nowhere, and apparently people would come out here and just horse around because he owned it. And it just, you know, before anything was built here, it was just a bunch of land to play around on. And so when he was thinking about building a hotel here, he thought, you know, tourists going to Disney World might need a place to stay. Because at the time, you know, you got to think, Disney World, when it opened, only consisted of the Polynesian and the Contemporary, of which at the time were not cheap. You know, those were big deluxe resorts as they are today. And he thought, what about people traveling to Disney World? What about giving them another option? You know, giving them a place to stay not terribly far from the parks, so maybe they could just, you know, go to Disney World and come back. Because at the time, you got to think too, all that was there was Magic Kingdom. You know, all of this around here that I'm going to show you in a little bit, none of that was here. So he thought, I'll just put a hotel here, and it will give people a place to stay, and then they can go to the theme park and come back, you know, for those that didn't want to stay on property. So what ended up happening is he built this hotel, and he called it the Hilton Inn South. This place was very successful. In fact, it was so successful that it allowed him to buy his own personal limousine, and he provided his own chauffeur. Now, you got to think, back in the late 60s, early 70s, you know, that was probably quite a bit of money to do that. He also, before this location, he opened another Hilton over on West Colonial, which at that time, he owned 2 Hiltons, which he was one of the first or second franchisees of the Hilton brand, which is obviously now gigantic. The hotel he built was the Hilton Inn South, and it opened in 1968. Now, what was interesting is Disney, you know, as he was buying this plots of land and all that, they got word of this hotel here, and they offered to have Disney run the hotel, the Disney company run the hotel, and then by doing so, they would train their staff here. They would get everybody ready for the opening of Walt Disney World. That way, when the Polynesian, Contemporary, and the hotels opened, they could have trained them on the Disney difference. Because we all know the Disney difference. It doesn't exist much nowadays, at least at Walt Disney World, because of, I'm not going to get into it, but it seems like ever since they put in all these 5 keys and all that, things have gotten really bad. Now, that's not to say all the cast members are horrendous in their service, but things have slipped quite a bit. You know, there are a large group that do a very good job, but there's a growing number that you see a lot of complaints online about how Disney World isn't the same anymore, and there's not that Disney difference. But if you want to see the Disney difference, Disneyland in Anaheim, and Tokyo Disney, and some of the other ones. But anyway, when he opened this hotel in 1968, Disney came to him and said, hey, we want to run your hotel, and we want to start training our cast members, you know, in the Disney difference, and we'll take care of everything for you. And he thought, well, that sounds like a good deal. So they from what we can find out, this was all done by handshake. Everything I've read so far, nobody can find any documents on this. Like, there was no signed documents about people being paid back, or you owe this much money for this, or there was no contracts drawn up, no nothing. It was just all based on a handshake. And because of that, he kind of, what would appear to be, got screwed out of about $50,000 in things that Disney never paid for. But what I thought was interesting is Mr. Hamilton never went after the Disney company for that, because he thought that what Disney was going to be bringing to the area was going to be more than enough. And in his eyes, it was his contribution to a great start to what was going to be, and what is obviously still now, one of the main reasons people come to Orlando, Florida. So it's obviously been very successful. So yes, he never pursued that $50,000, or that's what they estimated it as. The other thing that Mr. Hamilton did, he had a partner, Jack Zimmer. They purchased around this area about 29 more acres for about $10,000 an acre. And after the opening of Disney World, as things got more and more popular, people were wanting to buy land around here. And so what they started doing is they started selling all of that acreage off at about $100,000 to $200,000 an acre. So long story short, they made a ton of money on reselling this land that they had purchased. The other interesting thing too is there was no rhyme or reason to the acreage that they resold to developers. There wasn't like plots or anything. People came in and said, I'll take this much area, or I'll take that much area. And that's what led to how cattywampus and unorganized this current area is right now. So, little history in that area of this is the very first, or was the site of the very first off-property Walt Disney World Hotel, and this was also the site where a lot of cast members and service members and hotel staff were trained to eventually go to the Polynesian and then the Contemporary once Walt Disney World opened. So I'm excited to show you this area. We're going to take a little walk around, and then we'll talk a little bit more, and hope you enjoy this. Let's step out of the car. Let's see where we're at. All right, everybody, so here we are. We are at 6875 Sand Lake Road, the world's largest McDonald's. You all know this location. In fact, I know a lot of people from the UK and some of our other foreign tourists that love to visit us in Orlando. You all love this spot. I see this featured in a lot of vlogs from people that visit us internationally. But this is the site of the world's largest McDonald's. It has been renovated from what it looked like before, but doing research and trying to find the coordinates of the Hilton Inn South, it leads me to this area right here, the world's largest McDonald's. So this is right where it's estimated that Mr. Hamilton built the Hilton Inn South. And we are about, I mean, with traffic now, you got to think we're about 20-ish minutes from Disney World. But back in the day, you got to think no traffic here. There's hardly anybody here. So it'd be a quick, maybe 5-10 minute drive over to Disney World from here. And the other thing I wanted to point out is after opening this, he wanted to name the road that this sat on, because this road right here, this is Sand Lake Road, which again was a dirt road at the time, which is why people thought he was nuts for doing this, because there's just a dirt road leading to this. But because this location became so popular once it opened in '68, and especially again in '70, once Disney started sending their employees here to be trained, and they also took over the operation of the hotel, they paved another road, and he wanted it to be called Hamilton Road, but there was already such a road name here in the Orlando area, so he thought of this name right here. So this is it, and that is how International Drive was born. There's no rhyme or reason to it being called International Drive. It was called International Drive because he thought it sounded big and important, and that by just that name alone, that once businesses and tourism took off, that a lot of people would flock to this road because International Drive sounds amazing and big and important. And so International Drive was born, and it was paved. And this is the road, one of the very first roads that led all the way to Walt Disney World. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I find this stuff fascinating. I mean, to think that we're standing on what they are pretty sure of is the site of the Hilton Inn South, and it's also right across the street from all of this tourist district down here. That is International Drive now. Now, it is true International Drive has fallen into a lot of disrepair lately. However, it still holds a ton of history, and the reason it was even started was because of the hotel right here on this property. The other thing I found out that I thought was really creative and interesting is, if you ever notice, you ever drive down International Drive, which we will in a minute here, it's very cattywampus, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it appears to be very disorganized. Well, the reason for that is, like I mentioned earlier, when Mr. Hamilton and his associate, they started selling off these parcels of land that they bought, there was no rhyme or reason to the sale of the land. They were just selling it. People like, yeah, give me this plot here. I'll take a little bit of that over there. And there was no active boundaries or anything. People just said, I'll take this, I'll take that, and that's how they sold it, and that's how it remains today, as very disorganized, because that's how the land was sold. So pretty cool stuff here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera around. We're going to walk around the world's largest McDonald's. Once was formerly the Hilton in South, and then we'll get back in the car and we'll take a drive down International Drive, and then we'll finish up over near Walt Disney World. But like I said, right now there's all of these off-site Disney hotels. I mean, they're on Hotel Plaza Boulevard as the Disney Good Neighbor hotels. I mean, they're everywhere. But it all started right here, and all because of one man. Mr. Hamilton wanted a place for people to stay off-site at Disney, and then little did he know that a couple years later that Disney was going to come up to him and offer to run his hotel, and then all the staff would be trained there. And yeah, quite a bit was done here on this property, on this site. There is another hotel I really want to find that we'll do in another project. I don't know if it's still there, but we'll have to try to find an address. But there's a Ramada, or was a Ramada in Ocoee, Florida, and that's apparently where the press conference was done when they announced Walt Disney World. And then also on the way back, I'll show you Hotel Plaza Boulevard, where all of the Good Neighbor hotels are now, all of the off-site hotels, and then we'll stop and I'll show you where the once preview center for Walt Disney World was. So let's take a walk around here. Oh, it's hidden. It looked like it said McDoads. But this area is pretty fascinating to look at, you know. I also did find a couple pictures of the Hilton in South. It's very hard to find. Like I said, there's not a lot of details on it. I had to go doing some deep dives to kind of find info on this. But you know, who knows? We could be standing or walking through what may have been the lobby. Heck, we could have been standing in a room somewhere. Who knows? But this appears to be the property right here. The one thing though that I wish they would have never messed with is the design of this McDonald's. It's just like my Polynesian video. The architects that are designing this stuff, once again, it's dull and boring. Now the interior is not bad, and one day we'll do a separate vlog on that, but just look at the outside, and I'll see if I can find an old video or an old picture of the old world's largest McDonald's. Had a whole lot more personality than this, once again, monotone, boring ass construction. It looks like a bank right here. Doesn't look like a McDonald's. But anyway, that aside, the site of the Hilton in South, Walt Disney World's first off-property hotel. All right, so we're going to exit out on International Drive here, and across is Hogan's Beach Shop. Right here where this Perkins sits, this at one point, I believe, was the area where they were wanting to build that, I think they were going to call it the Polar Coaster, which would have been some 500 or 700 foot tall roller coaster. Never happened though. Over here are the giant Ferris wheel and the Starflyer. But yes, if you ever get a chance to walk down International Drive here, or as us locals call it, I-Drive, you'll notice it is a very chaotic setup. There's a lot of things here that just don't make a lot of sense, and that's the reason. All right, ladies and gents, right up here where we're getting ready to make a left turn, this is one of the one of, I think, 4 or 5 entrances into Disney World. This is the Hotel Plaza Boulevard entrance, which this road is what houses most of the Disney Good Neighbor hotels, which is considered to be on property, but not necessarily a Disney World hotel, but considered a Good Neighbor hotel. So you get a lot of the features within reason, like meaning I don't think you get like the I don't think you get to stay in the park, you know, extra hours and all that kind of stuff, but you do get a lot of transportation and other things if you stay here. This is where a lot of the value hotels are too. There's a lot of Hiltons here. There's a Drury here that's relatively new, which we'll go past, but also on this road is where the original preview center was to Walt Disney World. So once we make this left turn, I'll have the camera on and we'll go down Hotel Plaza Boulevard. So right here, this is Hotel Plaza Boulevard. This is what we're driving on. And up ahead is a Drury Hotel, which is a Good Neighbor hotel. You can find all kinds of places to stay along this road. There's a couple of off-name hotels over here, but if you stay here, you'll still get some of the perks that come along with staying at a Disney World hotel. This Drury right here that we just passed, that's a very popular one for people visiting to stay at because it doesn't break the bank. And of course, the one day I want to go in there, I can't because it's blocked off. Never mind the fact that nobody's ever there, but that was the Amateur Athletic Union. That was the site of the original Walt Disney World Preview Center. So one day we'll get in there. That just figures, though, the one day I want to do this project is the one day that entire lot is closed off because they got something going on there. Go figure. But that was it. That was it, folks. That's the preview center, or was the preview center. And then right up here, this is Disney Springs. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that little video there with the location of the former Hilton in South. I thought that would be something really neat to do. You know, I went and did some research, gathered some information, and just went with it. That was neat. It's always neat to look at those older places that, you know, hold a lot of history. And think about probably the millions of people that visit that McDonald's that have no idea what that site used to be or what it meant. It would be kind of neat if they had like a historical marker there or something. Just, you know, they always mark historical things everywhere. I think that's something that's definitely noteworthy. But that's it, the Hilton Inn South. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. See you on the next one. If you see me in the same shirt for the next few vlogs, it's because today's like one of my few days off this week, and I'm trying to get as many vlogs filmed today, and that way I can kind of fill them in as the week goes on, because man, after a 12+ hour shift, it's hard to do anything, you know. You know, and then you got to do it again the next day, another 12 hours, so on my days off from working at both the emergency department and the theme parks, I try to get as many vlogs as I can filmed in one day and then filter them out. That way that, you know, we don't have these long gaps in between vlogs, because I want to keep the subscribership going up. Thank you all very much for what you're doing to help the channel out. I really appreciate it. So see you on the next one. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Have a fantastic week. It's been the truth. It's been actual. I hope for everybody watching out there, it was mighty Disney World Hotel History Satisfactual. See ya.